Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Body Wisdom Podcast. We are your hosts, Kiara Orbe and Gabby Barboza. Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening. Welcome to another episode. Today on the Body Wisdom Podcast, we're going to be discussing trust because Lord knows we have this lack of trust in our bodies today, which makes so much sense. And I work with so many women who aren't quite sure how to understand what their body is communicating with them and following through with what their body is asking of them, and so on and so forth. So we thought we would do a whole episode on trusting your body again. I feel like it always comes back to childhood for me, for everyone, when we're tracing back and trying to make sense of like, why we don't trust our bodies. Like, oh, wow. You begin connecting the dots and it all makes sense. And you were kind of saying this the other day about not really understanding what your body is communicating because an outsider kind of tells you what is going on in your body.
Yeah.
When you're so little.
Whatever that narration was, whether that's get up, even if you fell down, no acknowledgement of what your feelings, things like that, then you really start to question your intuition and your trust in your own ability to understand how you feel. And you really outsource that to other people because that's what happened as you were growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think all we knew back then was you're sick, you're going to the doctor or take this medicine to get rid of it. So we never really had, and not that that's bad, because I think we should go to the doctor, when you're that young and you don't have anyone else to tell you, like, here, no, this is what you can do instead. And I feel so grateful to be able to share that with my children when it's just like a little cold and, things that we can remedy at home. But that was what I did. Like, oh, I'm sneezing, I'm coughing, like, ugh, I'm sick. Okay, time to go to the doctor.
And not antibiotics.
Yeah, not really understanding like what was happening and what my body was truly asking for and how to support her through that. And what I think is really overwhelming nowadays for women, for our clients, for our listeners, especially in the realms of social media, it's so overwhelming. When I entered the health space in 2016, 17, we didn't have like nearly as much information, I feel like, as there exists today. It's crazy how much things have escalated, which is, there are pros and cons to everything, right? Like, love how this information is becoming more mainstream. We're seeing, big health store or grocery stores like carry health products, and that's amazing. And at the same time, I can't tell you how many women I work with come to me feeling like all sorts of confused, like, oh, I heard this was good, but then I like castor oil packs. Someone's like, I heard that castor oil packs aren't good and that you shouldn't be doing them, especially if you're trying to get pregnant. And I was like, oh, yeah, gosh, that is so confusing when you hear like the benefits of castor oil packs, but then someone's like, no, don't do them. So then you're kind of entering that freeze state, like, okay, like, what do I do now? So that, of course, is not really going to support you in your healing journey when you're like, I don't know, just feeling lost.
You feel drawn to something, and then as soon as you feel drawn to it, something else contradicts.
Oh my gosh, like I feel like that's so big in this metabolic space.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is good for you, but then don't go too crazy with it because then oh, but this is actually not bad anymore. So try it because it's actually good for you. That's how I feel.
There might be, from the person that's saying that, there might be like one experience that they've had where it didn't do well. And so that makes them fearful to recommend things because of that one experience, but everyone's so different. And recommendations are not universal. So like back to the castor oil pack, it's not great if you're there. There's nuance to it. Like doing it on your period might make you bleed more. For someone that has a really scanty blood flow, that could be helpful for them to encourage blood. For someone that already has a moderate to heavy flow, that's not great because you're really losing even more blood than you need. But that's not a recommendation. Again, it's so individual. So
I think that's the key takeaway. Yeah. Like, it's not so black and white is what I've learned, especially as a recovering extremist. where, and that was because of the lack of like trust that I had in my body, the lack of safety that was in my body. Like it was either do or die. So it makes a lot of sense. And I feel like that's a lot of our listeners here, because you just want to feel better and you never want to feel like shit again. It's kind of like what I felt like. I don't know if you felt that way.
Totally. If there's anything I could do my biggest one was bloat and constipation. So if there's anything I can do, I'm going to do it. And I would even say back then, I would rather do everything I can and have diarrhea than not go to the bathroom.
I had that thought too.
Yeah.
When I was actually being treated for IBS, they gave me like antispasmodics and antidepressants, and I was like going, and I was like, shit, I'd rather have this than like not go at all. I was like, I don't care. Like, so long as it's coming out of me.
Anytime I felt a little twinge, I was like, perfect. It's great. I don't care what it looks like, but like there's an extreme there, and
it's still constipation,
nutrient loss. And exactly one of the biggest things seen in the hospital is when someone's really constipated, they usually have diarrhea first, because it's like, this is a lot of information, but it's going around the hard stool, and then the hard stool can finally pass, and that's not a great sign.
Yeah. Good bowel movements are so important. And I can understand like the desire to have good bowel movements for sure, like on a daily consistent basis. But here's the thing. Here's where it comes to like how we relate to our symptoms. Because if you notice it's a little off and you were having consistent bowel movements for a while, it's like, that's interesting. I'm starting to relate to those symptoms differently. I have been. It's like, oh, what did I eat? Oh, what's the stress like in my life? Okay, that could be impacting that. How did I sleep last night? Gosh, sleep impacts bowel movements so much the next day. Oh, I could see why my bowel movements aren't as great today, because it all makes sense, right? Instead of panicking and freaking out and the suffering that's there, you can still support the problem at hand, but just from a different space, because you are relating to your symptoms so differently. And that is trust in your body. Honestly, it's not that your body's never going to experience discomfort ever again in life. That's not living. It's just, how can we take action from a different space and support it with like complete trust in our systems?
And it's very like mindful, intentional changes that you would make that day versus, okay, now I'm going to go take Miralax and like a ton of laxatives. It's like, what can I do differently that I didn't do, that my trust in my body is telling me was probably the contributor to this? And then you just are very mindful and slow and titrated. And you talk about titration a lot with nervous system stuff. It's like if we want to actually be on the healing journey, we have to really allow our bodies to catch up, versus I'm just going to take this, even like stool softeners, and if that's right for you, that's right for you. But just like, can we take a step back for a second and analyze from a mindful place? Yeah,
exactly. And that's how your body begins like cultivating trust in you. Like the reciprocity there. Like, oh, thank you for treating me with love and tenderness, versus like just trying to get rid of me and how I'm communicating with you. Because then we never really give our bodies a chance to communicate, which our bodies communicate through sensation. And so why would we ever just want to just get rid of all sensation in our body? That's our body's language.
I am laughing in my head because I was going on a first date the other night, and right before I had diarrhea, like not full on diarrhea, but like a loose bowel movement.
Oh my
and
God.
In the years past, I would be like, oh my God, what's happening? But I knew, I was like, it's because I'm nervous. It's because my body is like, what are we about to do? We don't know what we're about to do. And I had to remind my body, like, you're safe. This is actually fun. That would happen to me playing hide and go seek. Would that ever happen to you? Whenever I would go hide growing up, playing hide and go seek, as soon as I got to my hiding place and I was like anticipating them finding me, I would have to go to the bathroom.
That's strong.
And I never knew why. And then like looking back, I was like, oh my gosh, because my body was like, wait, what's about to happen? We need to release at this time so you are stronger to like fight off this bear.
That strong mind gut brain connection.
Yes.
Yeah. The gut brain connection, real strong right there.
And you can bring like laughter and joy to it when you realize that it's that simple, versus I could have analyzed like everything going on, but I was like, it's as simple as my body feels nervous right now, and we're going to move on from it. And that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you just said, like the pausing and cultivating that safety in your body right then and there is the difference. Because sometimes, and this is also like how you begin cultivating trust in your body. Let's say that you're in a meeting and you have to like poop or whatever, you need to burp, you need to release in some way, or I don't know, you're feeling some type of way on the inside, you're feeling nervous, and there's no way to soothe those parts out loud, but you can still like mentally with your thoughts, communicate with your body. Like, okay, I see you. I'm going to get to you as soon as I can. Once I'm out of this call, once I'm out of this meeting, once I'm done talking to so-and-so, I will tend to you afterwards. And your body can hear you and notice like what happens on the inside. Is there softening that takes place? Is there like a little ounce of trust that you feel in your belly or in your heart space? And where is that? Where do you feel that sense of trust in your body? Maybe placing your hand on that area that you feel that discomfort. I mean, your own healing touch is so potent. So yeah, I think that little step can really make a big difference. And that kind of just reminds me of like the body's boundaries too, because when we hear a sensation, when we feel a sensation in our bodies, do we actually listen or do we just say, not right now, stop, trying to get rid of it right then and there, or like not following your body's impulse to go do something. And that is cultivating this distrust in your body right then and there. It's like, oh, okay, like I just will shut down, or I will stop communicating with you, or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think knowing when to listen and listening really at any impulse, it doesn't mean you have to stop your entire day, but just paying like a little bit of attention. And we were talking about that could mean like when your body is craving rest and you keep moving, or you go to the gym anyway. And sometimes it can be helpful, like especially if you have low cortisol, to go to the gym even when you feel tired. Give yourself like 5 minutes. If you're still not feeling well, but for after 5 minutes, then leave. And that's listening to your body. But sometimes it does take that boost. But if you are absolutely exhausted and that feels true for you, then not pushing yourself, or really minimizing like a workout, like not going to do this crazy Orange Theory or something when your body's exhausted. And that is on the flip side of, say you're laying on the couch and you've been having a restful day and your body is craving a walk or like craving some movement, and you're just like, oh, I just no. Then that starts to build distrust, and the body's boundaries really get muddied. So
they're not clear, and your body's like, okay, I'm really confused now. And it's probably trying to communicate with you, but the communication line is kind of just been cut.
Like, shut it off.
Yeah.
Shut off the extra phone line.
Yeah. And even if you do go to the gym and you get there and you're like, wow, no, this is not what I need right now. This is not what I want to do. This is not what I'm feeling right now. Then turning right around and not feeling any guilt whatsoever.
Totally. I've walked in, stayed for 5 minutes and walked out. Like, it's totally fine. And that is building the trust, and it takes time to do that.
Yeah.
As well.
We talked about this on another episode too, how I'm like in this season of life, because we're recording in the fall of 2022 and I'm having to relearn my body's boundaries. And sometimes it's been really frustrating because I'm just understanding like how much capacity I actually do have. But I think because I also just finished my period, I think that also makes a big difference, because I was like noticing like, wow, my body's only capable of so little right now. Truly, like I felt like if I'd go on a walk, I'd be so exhausted afterwards, and I would need to like really spend some time like recovering, lying on the floor for like 20 minutes afterwards, which is okay. And I'm not judging my body. I'm just like kind of shocked and appalled of like how I hadn't noticed that over the past few months. When you're in a busy season of life, you're so like just outwardly focused and you're trying to do and you're trying to get done. And then you actually give yourself some space to like feel what's actually happening on the inside and like really understanding like, wow, body does not have capacity for this. And as someone who is like, has a big doer online, it's like, wow, we can't even do that right now. That's wild. That's crazy. And like I said, it has been frustrating at times because it's very new. It's very new. It's very strange to be in that space. The slowing down, which I've talked about, like slowing down can be scary if you don't have like a wide window of tolerance. And so you're going to, I don't know, just feel that lack of trust in being able to slow down, that lack of safety. And it's not going to feel good whatsoever.
If anyone doesn't, can you explain window of tolerance?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
So the window of tolerance is your ventral vagal system in the terms of polyvagal theory, which I probably just made it more complicated. It's ventral vagal. It's where you experience flow, ease, trust, safety. And outside of that window of tolerance lie your sympathetic nervous system and your dorsal vagal system. And then you have some mixed states as well. But yeah, sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight, dorsal vagal is shut down, collapse. And when you have a blend of sympathetic with dorsal vagal, that's called a freeze response. And then you have play, which is ventral vagal mixed with sympathetic. So a little bit of that window of tolerance, that safety, that ease to be able to play, but you still have the mobilization of sympathetic. And then you have the dorsal vagal and ventral vagal state, which is stillness and being able to feel stillness, safe at stillness is what I mean. That's something that a lot of people probably don't feel and safe to be still. I've noticed that a lot lately.
Totally.
It's like, because I like there are thoughts that come online like, oh, we should be doing something, but kind of like stepping in as the mother of all your parts almost and saying, oh, but it is safe. But it also is not just a thought. How can you cultivate safety in your environment? How can your body truly feel like at the cellular level, that level of safety? And that is not something that happens in the first go around, to be quite honest. It's not something that happens in a month. It's something that's truly felt like months into this work.
Yeah, I really noticed that when I was in Portugal, like 5 hours ahead of the East Coast of the US. I think I talked to you about this. I noticed that I had so much more trust in what my body needed. And I don't know if anyone will resonate with this, but because I wasn't comparing what I was doing to anybody else because they were all in a different time zone. So like if you're in the East Coast, you were sleeping while I was waking up. And my day, I wasn't comparing to like, okay, what are my peers doing at this time? What should I be doing? It's like, no, my day is completely mine. And it doesn't take being in a different time zone to realize that. But I think we have this idea, especially with social media, and like people will write out their days and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so structured and that's so perfect. And that's so, and you don't trust like, what do I need to do today? What do I need today?
That's it. The comparison.
Yeah. And that
thief of joy,
like take away of comparison because it wasn't available to compare to people that are sleeping was wild. Like it really reminded me like it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing today. What do you need to do today? What do you want to do today? What feels good today? And that goes back to trusting your body.
That goes back to like your healing journey is yours and yours only. And you really can't compare your healing to someone else's because you have completely different histories, completely different timelines.
Maybe even time zones.
Maybe even time zones. Exactly. Yeah. You can't compare, which is so, I almost want to feel like it's natural to kind of do that as a human. But then you, again, as the mother, have to kind of step in and say, okay, it makes sense that you feel that way. But, and like we have our own story here, and how are we going to play out this story together?
Totally. Especially it's when you really admire other people and what they're doing. It's like, well, how can I be more embodied like them or like them and do this like them? And that's not really what it's about. It's how can I make myself feel?
And also social media is such a fucking like,
oh my god,
like highlight reel. So we really have no idea what's going on behind closed doors.
Totally. That person could write out their agenda and literally not do anything on it.
Yeah. I think
hopefully not. Hopefully they're not doing that, but maybe something does happen. You never know.
You never know. You
Mhm.
never know. So I think one other thing that kind of disrupts the communication between what's happening in your body and how you follow through with it is the concept of people pleasing and how that is so fear-based. I remember getting so triggered when someone told me, people pleasing is actually really selfish. And I know that it like there are two parts to this. Is like, okay, yeah, I can see that perspective. And also like it's not intentional. And I feel like I don't even know if I believe in the word selfish, because I think we're all just acting from our parts and acting from wounds and fragmented parts. So
and also serving ourselves first, that's not selfish. Like if I say I'm not gonna do this because I need to take care of myself, that's not selfish.
Oh, well, yeah, that definitely.
No, yeah,
like
there's so many different
pleasing
scenarios. So like things that I thought were selfish in the past, now I look back and I was like, that's not selfish.
No, that's not selfish at all.
Yeah.
But like for me, people pleasing was in order to avoid conflict. And so that's like fear. That's not being selfish on purpose.
Self-abandonment, but
it's self-abandonment. It takes resilience. In order to have resilience, you need to have capacity, and that means having a wider window of tolerance. So people act from this people-pleasing state because they have no resiliency, or they have very little resiliency. Doesn't mean that can't grow. That can, but it takes courage and bravery, which reside in that window of tolerance and self-energy. And everyone has access to self-energy, but I think it just takes like doing this work more to be able to say no. I remember a friend in high school told me, we were having a conversation about like a boy I was with, and I was like just a yes girl to everything, even though I was doing things I didn't want to do. And she was like, Yara, do you ever say no? And I was like, really stopped in my tracks right there. I didn't know anything about boundaries in high school, but like
anyone did.
Yeah. But in hindsight, I'm like, wow, yeah, it makes sense that I was that way. And now I love saying no. But those like flexible and rigid boundaries are not like saying things that really I'm not feeling true in my body. And I think that comes back to understanding the sensation that exists in your body and trusting that. Instead of sucking up to someone in order to receive their love. I think that's it at the end of the day. We all want to be loved. We have that innate desire to be loved.
So we think saying yes will help us be loved, especially if there is an unsafe part of that relationship and now you're kind of feeling like you're walking on eggshells. You might completely abandon yourself even more because you don't want to create conflict. You're avoiding conflict as you avoid yourself.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about like, people pleasing is a sympathetic nervous system response. Just FYI.
It's often so quick. Like you say yes before you even
have time
to think. Yeah.
I've done that before.
And then you say it and you're like, oh, fuck.
You pause after and you reflect and you're like, shit, I fucked that up.
Yeah.
and then you're like,
that sounds horrible, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, it is a sympathetic nervous system response. And so again, it just comes back to being within your window of tolerance. But when we're in a sympathetic nervous system response, there are stress hormones at the wazoo. Long term, if that is your response, if that is, gosh, this reminds me of like the Enneagram. Have you taken that test? I can't remember if we talked about that.
I can't take it because I am like, well, I could be that one. I could be that one.
Exactly.
And someone told me that means that you're on this number. I don't know if it's like a 9 or something. If you can't take the test, you're at this number. And I was like, okay.
I remember taking it and it was either like a 2 or a 9. And those are like helper and the peacemaker. Yeah. The helper and the peacemaker. And it's like, wow. But and I haven't gotten too into it for anyone who has. Like, I'm sure there are like action steps to like bring them more into balance and stuff. But really, for me, what I've learned, mindset work is can only take you so far, because again, all these traumas and stuff, it's not mental. It is stored in the body, and that comes out through behaviors and patterns and thoughts. So everything really truly is a reflection of the nervous system state that you're in. So
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you're looking for more, be sure to check out our Body Basics course. We'll be sure to link that in the show notes for y'all. It's an audio only with visual PDFs attached to them lessons. And yeah, it's open for enrollment for whenever you're ready. And I think that's all we got.
Talk to you soon.
We'll see you next time.